everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone's doing well. Apologize for this late video. A lot of that has to do with my recent job schedule. I actually ended up going all the way out in North Carolina today to do work. So apologies there. But obviously, a lot's been happening as of late, and there's a lot to catch up on. We're going to kind of break this down video by video. So I'll have a video tonight, be a video tomorrow, and of course, another video tomorrow afternoon. Obviously, a lot of this is going to have to do with the big buzz around recent winter weather expectations. We do have another southern winter storm signal that we're pretty confident in at this point. So we're going to, of course, get into the details with that. And then there's another sneaky little signal I'm keeping an eye on, but it's very much contingent on whether or not we end up getting a couple prerequisites here to occur beforehand. So definitely keeping an eye on things. The main day that we're talking about in regards to southern winter weather is going to be between the 22nd and the 23rd here. We could have a mixed bag across the board, no pun intended, figuratively and literally. This has a lot to do with how the low pressure that's anticipated to form over towards the Gulf will interact with the cold air. Timing is going to be everything with this, and also some ridging to go along with it. So make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to get pretty in depth with this here. So again, as I mentioned before, strong signal is going to be definitely over towards Houston, New Orleans, and then over towards far southern Georgia and the Carolinas here, especially towards the coast. Now this is a pretty rare instance for them, and it kind of concerns me in a way because these guys see winter weather far less than areas like Atlanta and Birmingham. Montgomery sees it a lot less too, so hopefully things will be handled in a proper manner over here. I mean, people make memes about Atlanta. I'm a little bit worried with these guys. But in any case, though, do take proper precautions in regards to dealing with winter weather and also frigid cold itself, because I mean, it's no secret there's a big Arctic outbreak coming pretty much. So we're going to be dealing with below freezing temperatures for a lot of these regions as well, of course. And this even pushes a little bit further down into the south for central Florida, even where at times you could even drop below 32 degrees. I don't know if it makes it as far south as Orlando, but in any case, though, the weather ahead it's not going to feel like typical Florida weather, I'll put it that way. But in any case, though, let's get into the model data. And normally, when I use the GFS, I try to go to the full 384-hour time range. We're going to save that for tomorrow's video. What we're going to do tonight is, of course, we're going to still have our comparison with the Euro, but since we're in the 18Z time frame where the Euro doesn't have the same kind of range as it would, let's say, towards lunchtime, we're going to just keep this to about a week out for right now. Towards the end of the month, there's a lot of stuff that could be ongoing with that. A lot of changes going with that as well. And then, of course, there's February to talk about too, which will be tomorrow morning. But in any case, though, a lot of moving parts. So we're going to kind of keep this simple and a little bit short and sweet, I guess you would say. But in any case, though, we're going to start out with the GFS, get this moving to our first time frame here. Now, one thing to remember is we still have a little winter event that's also possible over here towards the Ohio Valley and the Northeast here. And the GFS and the Euro have two different outcomes with this as well. The Euro is kind of a little bit on the lighter side with the winter event here. As you can see, we have a little bit of troughing here, and this is what's going to be the catalyst to that wintry system. And then you also have the GFS. We're going to move this to the same time frame here. A little bit stronger of a trough here. Cold air is in place, and it looks like a low does end up trying to form around here, but it's going to be more so towards the surface, so it's going to be hard to see it from this map here. We're looking up into the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere at this point, but you can see that stronger trough coming into play and a weak low setup with the GFS in particular. There's a much better chance for snow, stronger wind pattern too to go along with it, so there is a chance that the Northeast would get a good little dusting of snow here. Surprisingly, the Northeast hasn't been talked about as much for winter weather this year. It's been relatively quiet. Now, compare that to the Euro here. Not quite as strong of a signal here. But then, of course, we have the big trough coming in with the cold snap to follow in either case. And this is where we introduce the potential for our southern winter storm. So as we go further along here, we end up watching a low pressure form up here in the Gulf. Now, how this pans out is going to determine a lot of things. Where it ends up tracking is going to be the key to everything as well. You can see something kind of popping up over here. Like I said, we're looking high up into the atmosphere. The low that's going to be the key is really going to be more so towards the surface. But the reason I'm showing you this map is to show you the troughing and the cold air that's going to be accompanying this system. And this is why the winter weather chances exist so far to the south, because this is actually very rare. Like, I can't understate to you enough how ludicrous it even sounds that places like Savannah, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, Charleston, South Carolina have real chances of cumulative snow and freezing rain. Like I said, I really hope that officials are handling the situation well. But in any case, though, you can see this troughing coming in. You can see the system following up behind that. And where these two intersect is where we're going to be likely to see our winter weather occurring. It's not as strong of a signal on the Euro. GFS definitely has the more robust signal out of the two models. But what I'm going to be paying attention to most is the track of that low pressure. Now again, obviously looking at this map, it's going to be a little harder to see. But if this low, let's say if it were to track over, I would say central Florida, then the impacts are going to be staying confined over towards the coastline of the Carolinas, maybe just a little bit further inland. And then south central Georgia, southern Georgia, parts of northern Florida, we'll see most of the wintry action there. Now, if we go a little bit further to the north, let's say maybe closer towards the Georgia-Florida line, those impacts end up being brought a little bit further to the north. The funny thing is, the states that are further towards the north, or maybe even towards northern Alabama, northern Georgia, inland parts of North and South Carolina, Tennessee, more than likely there is a good chance we're going to be stiffed here, because in reality we don't really have enough moisture surging in to mix with that cold air. So can't really expect a lot in the way of wintry weather as it stands right now. Again, this is of course very much dependent on how that low pressure tracks. But in either case, right now, Euro GFS, we're kind of favoring that southern trend where we're kind of watching that low cross a little bit closer towards the central Florida peninsula here. So as we go further along here, this is where we see that little sneaky signal on the 24th here, where there could be a small chance of some wintry precip here, and there might be a chance of some accumulation. I do think that if anything does occur here at this point, it would be rather light. Oops, wrong map. But again, only one that I can look at this current time is the GFS, because we're out of range of the Euro at this point. We're already looking at 168 hours, so we're actually just a little bit over a week out. But you can see the troughing here. Cold air is definitely in place. That low pressure little clipper, I'm anticipating that this is likely a clipper system that we're keeping an eye out for. That comes in, regardless of whether it's a little bit of moisture or an abundant amount, would be enough to trigger some snowfall here. But the big topic, of course, to go along with it, and this is regardless of whether you're expecting winter weather or not, it's going to be the temperatures. Temperatures are going to be a huge factor, not just winter weather, but just overall living conditions over the course of the next few weeks, especially as we look towards the very end of January here. Now, we get towards the 19th into the 20th. Doesn't matter which one you look at really at this point, whether it's GFS or the Euro, you're seeing an intense Arctic blast here, pretty much what a lot of people are calling an Arctic outbreak, and rightfully so, because look at these below zero temperatures that we're seeing here as we head into the 20th here. So wind chill advisories and wind chill warnings, I would expect them to be in effect very soon, if they aren't already. But look how far south some of these get as well. So very dangerous conditions to be outside in. Make sure that you're properly insulated. And even if you're inside also, plumbing could be a very big issue. Make sure you leave those faucets dripping, of course. Then also, fire safety. This is a big deal for areas that are dealing with Arctic outbreaks, of course. Make sure your fireplaces are properly maintained. And of course, if you're using space heaters, don't put anything too close to it. Just Just common sense stuff, really. Hopefully everybody knows that ahead of time. But in any case, though, here's an example of just how cold it actually ends up getting. Negative 12 over here towards North Dakota, negative 19 over here towards Minnesota. Even Georgia isn't spared from this here. We're easily getting into the teens, probably by the 20th into the 21st. Even Florida doesn't get away from the below freezing temperatures at this point. It looks like Tallahassee over here is just going to be on the cusp of maybe either reaching or dipping below 32 at this point, just based off the Euro here. GFS isn't much better. In fact, GFS is more aggressive, if anything. In any case, though, this cold air is going to linger for a bit here. So throughout most of next week, just make sure you're bundled up and ready to go because it's going to be chilly. So, of course, like I said before, make sure you're well insulated, and also make sure you're practicing fire safety and also plumbing safety. So as we go further along here, and we went past the weekly mark, we do start to see a little bit of warming up as we go into the end of that week, and up to the end of next weekend, I should say. Then once we go beyond that point, all we have to do now is really look at the precipitation. So again, as we mentioned before, still have a little wintry system we may need to keep an eye on. Not much in the way of major impacts. If we look at the Euro, you can see that chance for mixed precipitation here, a little bit of mostly frozen precipitation, but also here and there we're intermittently changing into rain. It's going to limit any sort of snowfall totals, of course, towards the Ohio Valley and maybe parts of the interior Northeast. Different outcome with the GFS, much more aggressive signal, a stronger signal. Low pressure pops up here, along with the rain that we're expecting towards the deep south. This low deepens, almost tries to take the shape of a nor'easter, but as a result here, we have plenty of wraparound snow on the back end for the Ohio Valley Mid-Atlantic. But the Northeast here ends up potentially getting a nice little healthy dosing of snow here. Nothing that you haven't seen before, but some pretty heavy snowfall at the very least. Totals, still a little bit too early to tell, I would say, because we don't really have much in the way of model agreement, so don't want to necessarily get anyone excited. But 2 to 3 inches definitely would be possible with the the false nor'easter, I guess you would call that, as of right now. That kind of outcome. Now, as we go further along, this is where we get towards the southern winter event. And the thing to make note of here is we have 2 different outcomes with this as well. And this is where things get kind of frustrating. We have the GFS pushing back to the north, so this may start to include Dallas once again, because we've been kind of trending back and forth with this. There have been times where this has literally disappeared on models that go along with it. But in this case, we see Houston getting more in the way of snowfall, less in the way of freezing rain. Then with GFS here, you can see we're kind of dealing with a little bit more in the way of mixed precipitation, maybe a little bit more in the way of freezing rain. Dallas gets a little burst of snow, if anything, from this. But the other thing to make note of here as we go towards the 90 to 93 hour time frame here is that the low's in a pretty similar spot, maybe a little bit further to the north on the GFS run. As you go further along here, low kind of drops to the south, and look where it ends up, right over towards central Florida in this case. And then we see the same thing pretty much occurring here with the Euro. Now, I think if this low were to also strengthen, and this is another wild card scenario, if this low were to strengthen, this might also push to the north here. Any ridging occurs with this from the southeast ridge, which is just a little bit off the screen here. That pushes it north too. So while the models aren't really showing that trend, there's still chances that it could be pushed a little further north. So very much, and no pun intended again, liquid situation. But as we go further along, you can see that the GFS scenario is a little bit more aggressive too, especially with the ice scenario here. So crippling ice storm could be possible if this plays out all the way up through southern Georgia, the coast and coastal Georgia, heading all the way into the coastal Carolinas. Charleston again, Myrtle Beach could be seeing significant icing from this. Again, like I said before, these are areas that are very much not used to this, so my concern lies with how things end up being handled with this. We're still a bit of a ways out, so this isn't set in stone. So definitely not trying to cause any panic here, but definitely need to be paying attention at the very least as to what happens next. We'll watch this move out, of course, as we get towards the 22nd. So by midweek, that system's out on both models. So we'll see this gone. And then here's where things get kind of messy. Obviously, at this point, we're at the 141, 144 hour range. So from this point on, it's the GFS for the rest of the week. And the GFS has this scenario right here where we have a little low pressure pop up here. We have a little bit of remnant moisture on the backside of this. And as a result, there is a chance that we could get a burst or two of snow from these clipper systems that are going to be moving in from Canada. So, as of right now, I don't have a lot of confidence in this. I don't think this would be a high impact event or anything out as of right now, but I'm going to keep an eye on this because sometimes these clipper systems do overperform too. So, like I said, a lot we're going to be watching as we close out the month of January heading into February. Also, be ready to check out a video in the morning, which will be for the February outlook as well, because that came out yesterday. Fortunately, because of work, we weren't able to do that. But in any case, though, hope you guys enjoyed this video. You found it useful, informative. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave comments on here too, guys. Definitely appreciate those when you do. But in any case, though, it's been Metalhead Weatherman, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and have an awesome rest of your Friday.